Have you ever looked at a really messy set of facts and just wondered, where do you even begin? Well, today, we're going to pull back the curtain on legal reasoning. And look, we're not just learning about the law today. We're actually going to build a powerful tool that'll let you analyze pretty much any situation with the precision of a lawyer. So, let's jump right in.
So, here's our game plan. We'll start with what I call the legal puzzle. Then I'll introduce you to the IRAC framework. This is your system for solving it. After that, we'll put it to the test with a classic case, learn a really crucial tip for connecting rules to reality, and then, finally, we'll add this whole skill to your legal toolkit.
All right, first things first. Thinking like a lawyer isn't about memorizing thousands of rules. I mean, that's impossible. It's really about having a system, a method that brings order to chaos, that lets you take a total jumble of facts and find the legal core of what's really going on. So let's just get right to the heart of it. When you're faced with a story, a dispute between people with all its messy details, how do you systematically figure out what matters? How do you spot the actual legal issue hiding in there?
Okay, check out this scenario. You've got a 5-year-old kid. He pulls a chair away right as his aunt is about to sit down. She falls, she gets hurt. So, is a 5-year-old responsible for that? Can he even be held liable? I mean, on the surface, it seems simple, but legally it is packed with complexity. This is exactly why we need a framework.
And that framework, that kind of elegant solution to the messiness, is called IRAC. It's a 4-step system that lawyers use day in and day out to break down any fact pattern, nail down the legal question, and build a logical argument from the ground up.
And here are the 4 steps. It's issue, rule, application, and conclusion. IRAC. Think of this as your blueprint. Each step builds logically right on top of the last one. So let's break down what each one really means. First step, you've got the issue. This is where you pinpoint the precise legal question. It's a real skill, what lawyers call issue spotting. You're not just asking, who wins. You're framing it with this specific formula. Under a certain law, when these specific facts happen, does this particular legal result follow? Getting this part right is absolutely crucial.
Okay, next up is the rule. So once you've got your question, you need to find the right tool to answer it. And the rule step is all about stating the governing law. This is what's often called the black letter law, the established, written down legal principles that are going to control the outcome. Now for the application, and honestly, this is the heart and soul of legal analysis. This is where the magic happens. Here, you take that abstract rule that you just found and you weave it directly into the messy facts of your case. This is where you actually build your argument.
And finally, we land on the conclusion. This part should be really straightforward. It's just the logical answer to the issue that flows directly from your application. No new arguments, no surprises, just a clear, clean statement of the outcome.
All right, enough theory. Let's see how this thing actually works in the real world. We're going to go back to our 5-year-old and his aunt. And this whole scenario actually comes from a real, super famous torts case called Garrett v. Daly. Let's put IRAC to the test.
So let's start with I for issue. Using our formula, it would sound like this. Under the doctrine of battery, can a 5-year-old possess the requisite intent to be liable? See how specific that is? We've already nailed down the law we're looking at, battery, and the core question we need to answer, the whole idea of intent in a child.
Now we move on to R for rule. So to answer our issue, we're actually going to need 2 rules. First, we need the definition of battery. And second, since our whole issue hinges on it, we need the precise legal definition of intent. So here's our first rule. Battery is an intentional act that causes a harmful or offensive contact with another person. Pretty simple, right? But notice that word, intentional. That's the key we're going to need to unlock this whole thing. Okay, so this is critical. The legal definition of intent is way broader than you might think. In tort law, it actually has 2 parts, or prongs. The first one is what you'd expect, specific purpose. You meant to cause the harm. But the second one, and this is the key to our case, is substantial certainty. This means you knew with practical certainty that the contact was going to happen, even if you didn't specifically want it to. Okay, so now we get to the application, where we analyze the facts. How do we connect that rule of substantial certainty to what our 5-year-old actually did? Well, I'm going to share a simple but incredibly powerful tip that lawyers use. It all comes down to one single word.
And that word is because. Seriously, using because is the bridge in your analysis. It literally forces you to connect the rule directly to a specific fact from the story. You can't just say the rule is met, you have to prove it by explaining why, by saying the rule is met because of this specific fact.
So let's apply it right here. The intent requirement for battery is met because the 5-year-old child knew with substantial certainty that his aunt was going to try and sit down right where that chair was supposed to be. He literally saw her in the process of sitting. That is the factual link. See? It's not about him wanting to hurt her. It's all about him knowing she was going to fall. And that leads us to our crystal clear conclusion. Therefore, yes, the child can be held liable for battery, but the liability isn't based on malice or wanting to be mean. It's based entirely on his knowledge that the harmful contact, the fall, was practically certain to happen because of what he did.
So we just took a pretty complex legal problem and solved it, step by step. But the real power of IRAC is that it's not just for this one weird case about a chair. You've just picked up a universal tool. This framework can be applied to almost any legal scenario you're ever going to run into. Just look at how this plays out across different cases. In one case, the core rule might be about offensive contact. In another, it's transferred intent. The specific facts and rules are always going to change, but that underlying IRAC structure, issue, rule, application, conclusion, that is the constant that guides your thinking every single time. Honestly, think of the IRAC framework as your master key. It doesn't matter if you're analyzing a case of assault or trespass or false imprisonment, the process is always the same. You just identify the specific issue and then you swap in the right rule for that particular tort. The system just works everywhere. So there you have it, a 4-step blueprint for thinking clearly, logically, like a lawyer. It lets you take any mess of facts, find the real legal question, apply the correct rule, and come to a solid, reasoned conclusion. You now have the fundamental tool. The only question left is, what are you going to build with it?